Hello friends, Jermaine here and welcome to this video. We're going to be starting a new series building a Flutter application. Let me show you what that app looks like. It's a restaurant app. This uses the Zomato Restaurant API, and the way it works is we've got this initial screen with a search field. Right now there are no results to display because we're not searching for any restaurants. Let's search for one. And we'll enter in a search term. So let's say kebab. And then when we hit search, we see a spinning icon, and that goes to the Zomato API and gives us a list of results. This is the first step. There are going to be a couple more iterations that will be happening with this app. But in this video, we're going to be building this flow. Let's create a new Flutter project. We'll do Flutter create. And I'll call it restaurant search app. Okay, so that'll generate the necessary files and folders, and also it will update our packages by running the flutter pub-get command. Now that we have our Flutter project created, we can cd into it, and let's open it in VS Code. And before we run our Flutter project, we need to have a simulator running. So I'll open the iOS simulator. Okay, cool. And I'll just minimize this. Alright, so now we should be able to launch this project. If you're using VS Code with the Dart and Flutter extensions installed, you can just press F5. Alternatively, you can do Flutter run in the terminal, and that will also run the project for you. Every Flutter app you create will give you this example. We have a material app running with the material widgets. And let's look at the code for that. We've got a stateless widget, which renders a material app. This is the root of a material-based application. There's also Cupertino app if you wish to build an app that uses the iOS Cupertino widgets. And if we scroll down a bit further, we've got a stateful widget. This allows us to hold state and use that information to update a tree of widgets. Stateful widgets come in two parts. There's the class stateful widget, and then there's the state class. I'm going to clean this up a bit by getting rid of all these comments. I'm gonna get rid of the floating action button and all of that. This bit as well. Let's rename our app to restaurant search app. And I'll rename this widget to search page. Let's rename that as well. All right. And not to worry about that. We'll restart the whole app in a bit. And then let's set the title as restaurant app. And let's do a hot restart. Okay, so that gives us this. So in our app bar widget, let's start by setting the background color to red. And let's get rid of this debug banner showing up. So we can do that here. We can do debug mode, show checked mode banner, and I'll just set that to false. Okay. And in here, I'll create a form, and this form takes in a child. This child will be a column widget. In this column, let's just specify our children. A form widget also needs to take in a key. We can define a form key for it. It will be a global key object. We can pass that in here. So let's build our input field. We want a text form field. And when I save this, we get a text form field here. So let's amend the design a bit. I'll set a decoration, and then we want an input decoration. In here, we'll specify a prefix icon. So we'll render an icon based on our search. We got that here. We'll specify a hint text. Let's change the border style. At the moment it's on the bottom, and we'll create an outline input border. We can also specify a field. I'll set that to true, which just change the background color slightly. And then let's move on to the button. So let's render a flat button. This takes in an onPressed named argument, and also we need to specify a child for it, which will just be a piece of text that says search. Let's give it a background color. Let's give the text a color by setting the style named argument, and we'll specify a text style, and the color we want will be white. Font size will be 18. Okay, let's expand the width of this flat button. We need to wrap this in a sized box widget. So we'll set the width to $infinity. So that's the full screen width. And then we'll specify a child, which will be this flat button. So that makes it full width. All right, let's look at some validation for our form field now that we've got our search button. I'll come back to our text form field, and in here, in order to get validation, I will set my validator function. This validator function gives us the value as an argument. And then we're just going to check if value is empty, then we want to return an error message, or else we'll just return null, which means it was valid. Okay, so let's test this out. If we enter search, then we delete it. Okay, nothing happens. And this is because we need to trigger validation. We can set auto validate to true. You see this error message pop up. Please enter a search term. And if we do, then it disappears. Okay, so let's clear this again. Let's style this a little bit, actually. Setting the error style. I'll just set the font size to 15. I'm not too keen on validating this straight away. So why don't we set auto validate only after this search has been clicked? And the way we're going to do that is to define our onPressed click handler. So in here, I'll create a variable called isValid. And then with our form key, I'll grab the current state and then invoke the validate function. So this will trigger validation on the form fields, and then it will return a true or false to indicate that the form is valid or is not valid. So here we'll say if it's valid, we'll perform our search, or else set our auto validate to true. Let's do this bit. We will create a property called auto validate. I'll set that to false initially, and then let's use that value here. And then over here, we'll run set state, and then we'll set auto validate to true. I will do a hot restart. Okay, right. So if I hit search, that's valid. If I hit search now, it becomes invalid, and now we see errors. I'm quite keen on having the search button a bit bigger. So I'm gonna wrap this text widget in a padding widget. So padding takes in a child, which will be this text. And then padding takes in a padding. And the way we set padding values is edge insets. So we'll do edge insets to all, and we'll give it a value of 15, which looks like that. Let's add a bit of space in between these two. We are also able to use a sized box widget just to add white space. So I'll give it a height of 10. So if I hot restart, then we get that nice space in there. I'm going to be a bit picky actually with the design of this button. So rather than using a flat button, I'll use a raw material button. We'll set fill color to red, and then we'll specify a shape. And this will be a rounded rectangle border. I'll specify a border radius, and I'll say border circular, we'll say 5. Let's save that. Okay, so that looks a bit better. Next, what we need to do is to perform our search, which brings us to our API. And here's the API we're going to be working with, the Zomato API. If you go to this URL, it will bring you to this page here. So what you want to do is to generate an API key by clicking generate. And then you can sign up or log into Zomato. I already have an account, so I can continue with my Google account. Once you've logged in successfully and you return to the screen, it should now say available here with the API key. So we can just copy this API key. And then I'm going to come back to our code editor. And because it's not good practice to have the API key directly in the logic, because I'll be pushing this to GitHub when I'm done, I will create a .env file at the project root. And in here, I'll specify a variable called Zomato API key. And the result of that will be set to the key that I copied over. So I'll close that. And in order to access that key, we're going to be using a Flutter package to help us do that. This Flutter package is called flutter.env. It'll look at that .env file we've created, and then it'll allow us to load our key value pairs into our app. So let's go and do that. I'll add the flutter.env dependency in my pubspec YAML file. I'll save that. In here, we can import .env package. Okay, let's run flutter pub-get. All right, and in here, we can await .env.load, and we want to load our env file, and it will initialize the configuration we have in there. Let's make this async. So doing this now means that we are able to access that Zomato API key. I'm also gonna install another package for making API calls. This is the Dio package. So I'm gonna install Dio as well. And let's run flutter pub-get again. Okay, so now we should have Dio installed. And let's import that. Such, I'll come to our stateful widget, and then I'll create a final variable called Dio. And here we'll create Dio object. And then in order to use this, I'll come in here. Let's create a method, search restaurants. This will take in a query. We'll mark this with async. And then I'll create a variable called response. So this will allow us to make our API call. So in order to access this Dio reference, we'll do widget.dio dot, and then we'll invoke the get method that takes in a path or a URL. And we're going to use the Zomato search. This get method takes in query parameters. The query is called Q, and that takes in our query. So the call happens, we get our response, and for now let's just print out the response. And when I come over here, I'll go ahead and run our search. We need to pass in the query from this text form field. Let's create a variable, we'll call it search. And with that, we'll specify an unchanged function in here, and we'll just invoke set state. And then our search will receive the updated value. I'm gonna put a breakpoint on line 44, and then let's enter in our search. I actually don't need to do a set state here because we're gonna update the search value, but we don't need to redraw this widget. So let me save that, and I'll try that again. Let me do a hot restart. Okay, let's see. Okay, it looks like this iOS simulator is misbehaving itself, so I'm gonna close that, and I will use this Android simulator because the same logic appears to be working with it. So let's test out our API call, and I enter in a search term, and I hit search. Okay, so we hit that line, we're making our API call, and then let's move to the next. We are somehow getting an exception with this. Right, it's not going to work because we've not passed in our API key. So let's come to our Dio object. Dio takes in a base options object. So with our base options, in fact in here we can specify the base URL, which will be this one. And also here we're able to specify our request headers. And in this request header, we need to specify a user key. And this user key will be the user key we place in our .env file we can now do. And then we want the Zomato API key. So if I save that, because we've got a base URL, that means for our get call, we can just pass in an empty string, and we'll leave our query parameters like that. Let me do a hot restart. Okay, hot restart is taking a while, so I'm just going to stop the app, and then I will run it again. Enter my search term, and then I run search. We get an error, and let's run with debug mode. Let's look at the request we're making. So in our headers, so it looks like it's failing because the user key is null. Alright guys, silly me, figured out what the problem is. So I'm going to stop this app, and we need to add this .env file as an asset for our Flutter project. So you see here it says to add assets to your application. Do it like that. We are going to add the .env file as an asset. So I'll save that. Also make sure you add this to your gitignore file. So I'll just go ahead and do that. Here, you don't want to be committing that to source control. Okay, so now both are done. I should be able to run this app again, and then hopefully our request will go through. Okay, let's enter our search term. Okay, we hit that breakpoint, and then now we got our response. Okay, so that's good. And then our response data gives us our results. I'll just let that go through so we can confirm that works. And just to give us an idea of what the results look like, I'll create a new folder, and in there, let's place the results. So the results look something like this. And then what we want is this list of restaurants. So I can do traverse the response.body, and then we can render the restaurants in our UI. So I'll create a variable here called restaurants. And then over here, we can do a set state. Then our restaurants will be equal to response.data. And then we want the restaurants key. And let me get rid of these breakpoints. We don't need them anymore. And now to use this, we can come down here. So after our form, let's do a quick check. If restaurants is not equal to null, then let's render a text box saying we'll count the amount of restaurants and we'll say results. Or else, let's just render a simple text widget saying no results to display. So it looks something like that. So let's go and do our search. Okay, so we got 20 results. Let's tidy this up a bit. We'll create a stateful widget. We'll call it search form. We'll define our search form state, and let's create the state object. Okay, and then this build function will return our form. So this whole form. And the reason why we're doing that is to improve legibility in our code, because this is a bit too much happening here. So it's generally good practice to make your widgets self-contained as much as possible. So you have a tree of widgets solving one problem. Okay, so let's handle these errors. We can copy these two in here. We can copy the form key as well in here. Here we just need to sort out search restaurants. So for our search form, stateful widget, we'll define a constructor, and this constructor will take in an onSearch named parameter. This will be of type function with the search string, and the name is onSearch. So that means over here, we'll be able to do widget.onSearch. And then here we'll instantiate our search form widget, and we'll set onSearch to search restaurants. Okay, so this should still work. Let's see. Yeah, it will still say 20 results because the Zomato API always returns 20 results. So let's improve our results listings. Okay, let's revert this condition. If it's null, then we'll say no results. Or else we'll render a list view. This list view takes in a children of widgets, and in here will be our restaurants, and then we'll map over that. And for each restaurant, what we're going to do, we're going to return a list tile widget. This list tile widget will take in this list tile widget takes in a title. It also takes in a subtitle, and it also takes in trailing widget. So let's see what we can pull in from our JSON data. So for our title, with each restaurant, we can use the name for the restaurant title. For subtitle, we can use our address. So it'll be location, then address. And then for the trailing, we can use the aggregate rating, so user rating, and also the number of reviews. So let's check those out. So for title, we'll just do restaurant name, and I believe, yeah, each list of restaurants has got a restaurant key. So it's restaurant, then name. And we'll do something similar here for address. So we need to wrap this in a text widget, and then we'll create a text widget, and then this text widget will take in the user rating and then the aggregate rating, and we'll say stars such. Let's do that for now. And from the result of our map function, which returns an iterable, we need to convert that to a list. So I'll save that, search, and then let's search again. Oh, we may have to do a hot restart, and let's search again. Okay, we got a list of results, but it's not showing up. Okay, so we got an error here. Okay, it says render box was not laid out. And we got that error because the list view needs to be rendered in a widget that's got dimensions. So we can create an expanded widget. And then for the child, it will take our list view. And then we can just close it off here. As such, and gives us that result. Yeah, so it should look like that. So we got this amount of stars. Let's also render the amount of reviews. Let's do that. I'll say reviews, and then I'll change this bit to all reviews count. And let me save that. And that gives us that. Okay, let's improve the spacing a bit between the search form and then the list of restaurants. So I'll add a sized box to add some spacing, and let's set the height to 10. Yep, so add a bit of spacing there, and let's add some spacing around here as well. So for my search form widget, I'll come in here and then I'll declare a padding widget. The child of this padding will be this form. And then we need to specify the padding, and let's set 10 as a value. It's a bit too much space in here now, so I'll just get rid of the size box I declared there. So yeah, that looks much better. Let's try another search term. Okay, so here in this text area, rather than it saying no results to display, we are also meant to display the search icon next to that. So let me do a hot restart, and in fact in this column the main axis should not be center, it should be start, to move the search box up. And let's look at the styling of that. So that would be a column. The first child will be an icon based on the search icon. We'll give it a color, and then we want the black color at 12% opacity. So let's save this, see what that looks like. You see that it's a bit too small, so let's increase the size of it, and we'll make the size 110. Okay, so now we see that, and then we'll add another child. That will be our text, which says no results to display. Okay, let's give it some styles. We'll give it the same color. We'll set a font size of 20, and let's make the font bold. Okay, so it looks like that. And then let's set the main axis to center, and it appears to not be extending, so we need to also wrap this in an expanded widget, and that should center it like that. Okay, so that should be it for this video. Let's test this out one more time. So if I enter in a search term and I hit search, it will go off in search, and then it gets the results for us. Alright, so I'm going to end the video here. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this lesson, give it a thumbs up, and also share this video as well so people get to know about it. If you are not a subscriber, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification icon next to the subscribe button so you don't miss out on future updates. If you've got any comments, let me know down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.